The Valorian Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They had conquered 17 star systems and made slaves of dozens of alien races. Their warships were the largest and most powerful ever built. Their soldiers were trained from birth to kill without mercy. When they found a new world, they took it. No one could stop them. No one even tried anymore. Admiral Korath was the greatest commander in the Empire's history. He had led the conquest of 6 worlds himself. His name was feared across every corner of known space. When the Empire's scouts discovered a small blue planet called Earth, the Emperor himself gave Korath the honor of adding it to their collection. Korath stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The ship was 3 miles long and carried enough firepower to burn a continent. Around it floated 200 other warships, each one capable of destroying a city in seconds. This fleet had never lost a battle. They had never even come close to losing Dot. Through the viewing window, Korath watched Earth rotate slowly below. His officers had been studying the planet for weeks. They had listened to the humans' radio signals and watched their primitive satellites. The intelligence reports all said the same thing. These creatures were weak. The humans had only reached their own moon a few decades ago. They still fought wars against each other over small pieces of land. They were divided into hundreds of countries that could not agree on anything. Their weapons were crude. Their ships could barely leave orbit. In every way that mattered, they were children. "Admiral," said his second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Draven. "All ships report ready. The humans have detected our fleet. Their communication channels are filled with panic." Korath allowed himself a small smile. He enjoyed this moment right before the killing began. The moment when a species realized that everything they had built was about to end. "Begin the subjugation protocol," he ordered. "Destroy their military centers first. Once they understand they cannot fight, they will surrender. This conquest will be finished by morning." The plasma bombardment began at 3:47 in the morning, Earth time. The first shot struck a naval base in a place called Norfolk. The entire base, along with everyone inside it, vanished in a ball of blue fire that could be seen from space. The second shot hit an airbase in Germany. The third hit a military headquarters in China. In 60 minutes. The Valorian fleet destroyed 63 targets across the planet. Military bases, government buildings, communication centers all gone. The humans died in their beds, in their offices, in their cars. They died without ever seeing what killed them. 800,000 people died in the first hour. In Washington, D.C. The President of the United States was rushed into an underground bunker beneath the White House. His name was Daniel Carson, and he had been a soldier before he became a politician. He had seen war. He had lost friends to bombs and bullets. But nothing had prepared him for this. His Secretary of Defense was waiting for him in the bunker. Her name was Linda Patterson, and her face was pale, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "The attacks are coming from orbit, sir. A fleet of alien ships. Over 200 of them." Carson sat down heavily in a chair. Around him, screens showed footage from around the world. Cities on fire. Mushroom clouds where military bases used to be. People running through streets, screaming, not knowing where to go. "Casualties?" he asked. "We don't know exactly. Hundreds of thousands, at least. Maybe more." Carson closed his eyes. He thought about his daughter, who was at college in California. He thought about his wife, who was visiting her sister in Florida. Were they alive? Were they safe? He did not know. He could not call them. The communication networks were destroyed. When he opened his eyes, something had changed in his face. The fear was still there, but it had been pushed down, buried beneath something harder and older. "Get me every world leader still alive," he said. "The Russians, the Chinese, everyone. And find out everything you can about these aliens. "What are we going to do, sir?" Linda asked. Carson stood up. "We're going to fight." Across the country, in a small town in Nebraska, a man named Kevin Brooks was watching the news with his family. Kevin had served in the Army for 15 years. He had fought in 2 wars and earned medals for bravery. Now he was a farmer, growing corn and raising his daughter. His wife, Maria, was crying quietly. His 14-year-old daughter, Sophie, stood in the doorway with her face wet with tears. "Dad?" Sophie said. "What's happening? What do we do?" Kevin pulled her close and held her tight. He did not have an answer. He did not know what was happening or what would come next. He only knew that his family was alive, and he would do anything to keep them that way. On the television, a reporter was saying that the aliens had sent a message. They demanded complete surrender. All humans were to lay down their weapons and submit to Valorian rule. Those who obeyed would be allowed to live as slaves. Those who resisted would be killed. Kevin looked at the screen for a long moment. Then he looked at his daughter and his wife, at the home they had built together. "We don't surrender," he said quietly. "We never surrender." Maria looked at him with fear in her eyes. "Kevin, they destroyed entire bases in seconds. How can we possibly fight them?" Kevin walked to the window and looked down at the dark fields that stretched to the horizon. Somewhere up there, beyond the clouds, alien ships were circling his planet. They thought they had already won. They thought humans were weak and would break easily. They did not know humans at all. "I don't know how we'll fight them," Kevin admitted. "But I know we will, because that's what we do. We survive. We adapt. We find a way." He turned back to his family and forced a smile. "We've survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We're still here, and we'll still be here when these aliens are nothing but dust." Sophie wiped her eyes. "Do you really believe that, Dad?" Kevin thought about all the history he had learned, all the stories of impossible victories and desperate last stands. He thought about the human spirit, that strange and stubborn thing that refused to die no matter how hard the universe tried to kill it. "Yes," he said, "I really do." Above the earth, Admiral Korath waited for the surrender that he was certain would come. He had conquered many worlds and seen many species break beneath the weight of Valorian power. He had no idea that this time would be different. He had no idea what humans were truly capable of. Admiral Korath expected the humans to surrender within hours. Every other species had done so. When you showed them that resistance was hopeless, they gave up. It was simple. It was logical. It was how the universe worked. But these humans were not logical. 6 hours after the first bombardment, Korath received a report that confused him. The humans were launching missiles from their remaining military sites. His sensor officer seemed nervous when he delivered the news. "Admiral, the missiles are carrying nuclear warheads. They appear to be targeting our fleet." Korath almost laughed. Nuclear weapons were primitive technology. His shields could handle them easily. The humans were wasting their weapons on an attack that could not possibly succeed. "Let them come," he said. "They will learn that we cannot be harmed by such crude devices." The first nuclear warhead hit the Eternal Dominion shields at 4:32 in the morning. The shields held without trouble, but the explosion was massive. From the planet's surface, it looked like a new sun had appeared in the sky. Then came another explosion, and another, and another. Within 6 hours, the humans launched every nuclear weapon they had. Over 12,000 warheads flew up from the planet, from submarines and silos and aircraft. Countries that had been enemies for decades worked together without hesitation. American officers shared information with Russian commanders. Chinese and Indian soldiers coordinated their attacks as if they had trained together for years. Every single warhead hit its target. The humans' aim was perfect. and every single warhead failed to break through the Valorian shields. Korath should have been pleased. His fleet was undamaged. The humans had used up their most powerful weapons and accomplished nothing. Victory was certain, but Korath did not feel pleased. He felt something he had not experienced in over a century of warfare. He felt uneasy. "They are insane," Draven whispered, staring at the tactical display. "Those weapons would have poisoned their own planet if they had succeeded. They would rather destroy themselves than submit to us." Korath said nothing. He was thinking about what he had just witnessed. In his 300 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to an invasion this way. Most surrendered after the first attack. Those who didn't gave up after the second. None of them had ever tried to commit mutual destruction rather than accept defeat. What kind of creatures were these humans? On Earth, Linda Patterson stood in the underground bunker with the surviving military commanders. The nuclear attack had failed, just as they knew it would. But that had never been the point. "They know we're not going to surrender now," she said. "They know we'll fight to the last person. That changes their calculations." General Marcus Cole was a large man with gray hair and hard eyes. He had served in the military for 40 years and seen more combat than anyone else in the room. Even he looked shaken by what was happening. "So we've made them nervous," he said. "That's good, but we still can't hurt them. Their shields are too strong. Their weapons are too advanced. What do we do now?" Linda pulled up information on a screen. "We learn. We adapt. And we make them pay for every inch of ground they try to take." The aliens began landing ground troops on the third day. They expected the conquest to be easy. They had better weapons, better armor, better training. Their soldiers had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never fought humans before. The first Valorian patrol in New York City was destroyed within an hour of landing. A group of police officers and ordinary citizens ambushed them with homemade explosives and hunting rifles. The alien weapons were powerful, but they were not designed for close combat in narrow streets. The second patrol in London lasted 2 hours before a retired soldier named Peter Campbell led an attack with weapons taken from a military museum. The old guns still worked. The aliens did not expect them. Across the world, the pattern repeated. The Valorians had overwhelming firepower, but humans had something else. Thousands of years of experience in guerrilla warfare. They knew how to hide. They knew how to ambush. They knew how to turn every building and every street into a death trap dot in Nebraska. Kevin Brooks gathered a group of local farmers and veterans. They had hunting rifles and shotguns. They had tractors and trucks. They had fertilizer that could be turned into explosives and tools that could be turned into weapons. Most importantly, they had knowledge. They knew every road and field for 100 miles. They knew where to hide and where to strike. On the fourth day, Kevin's group spotted a small alien aircraft that had crashed in a field. The pilot was injured but alive. The obvious thing to do was kill him and destroy the ship, but Kevin had a different idea. "We capture the ship," he said. "We capture the pilot. We learn everything we can." His friend Samuel, a mechanic who had served in the Marines, looked at him like he was crazy. "Capture an alien ship? How?" Kevin smiled. "The same way our ancestors captured horses from their enemies. The same way we've always done things. We figure it out. It took them 3 hours, but they did it. They disabled the pilot with a taser and tied him up. They found the ship's control systems and learned how to shut them down. And then they started taking the ship apart piece by piece to understand how it worked. Within a week, Samuel had built a crude device that could disrupt Valorian shields at short range. It wasn't perfect. It only worked for a few seconds. But it was enough to stop the next Valorian patrol that came through. Nebraska lost 3 soldiers to bullets that should not have been able to touch them. Admiral Korath received the report with growing concern. The humans were learning too fast. They were adapting to Valorian technology in ways that should have taken decades. And they were not giving up. He sent a message to the Imperial Senate requesting more ships and soldiers. The response came back quickly, and it was not what he wanted to hear. No reinforcements are available. The Empire's resources are committed elsewhere. You must subdue the humans with your current forces or destroy the planet entirely. Korath considered the second option. It would be easy. A few well-placed bombardments and Earth would be nothing but a dead rock floating in space. But that would be an admission of failure. That would mean that these primitive humans had done something no other species had ever done. Force the Valorian Empire to give up. No, he would not destroy the planet. He would conquer it, no matter how long it took, no matter how many soldiers it cost. He did not realize that this decision would doom his entire civilization. On Earth, Kevin Brooks looked up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, the alien fleet was still circling. They thought they were winning. They thought it was only a matter of time. But humans had fought against impossible odds before. They had survived ice ages with nothing but stone tools. They had crossed oceans in wooden boats. They had walked on the moon. Now they would reach for the stars again. Not as explorers or dreamers, but as warriors. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. 3 months had passed since the invasion began. The Valorian Empire now controlled every major city on Earth. They had killed over 800 million humans. Their flags flew over the ruins of capitals and parliaments and palaces. By every measure. They had won. But Admiral Korath had never felt less victorious. He stood in his command center on the outskirts of what had once been called Chicago. The building was heavily guarded. Shields protected it from attack. Sensors watched every approach. And yet Korath could not shake the feeling that he was not safe, because the humans were still fighting. Every day, his forces reported new losses. A patrol ambushed in Berlin. A supply convoy destroyed in Brazil. A communications tower blown up in Japan. The attacks came from everywhere and nowhere. The humans struck like ghosts and vanished before the Valorians could respond. They called themselves the Resistance, and they were everywhere. Draven entered the command center with the day's casualty report. His face was grim. "We lost 47 soldiers today, Admiral. 32 to ambush, 9 to explosives, 6 to snipers." Korath slammed his fist on the table. 47 soldiers. Against a species with no fleet, no advanced weapons, nothing but crude firearms and homemade bombs. How is this possible? Draven hesitated. The humans fight differently than any enemy we have faced. They don't follow the rules of war. They don't care about their own casualties. They use their knowledge of the terrain against us. And they learn, Admiral. They learn from every fight. Every weapon we use, they study. Every tactic we employ, they adapt to. Korath knew this was true. He had seen the reports. The humans were not just fighting, they were improving. In the first week, their ambushes had been clumsy and ineffective. Now, they were precise and deadly. They had learned to target weak points in Valorian armor. They had built devices that could disrupt shields. They had even captured several Valorian aircraft and learned to fly them. The humans were not just surviving. They were evolving. In the mountains of what had been Colorado, Dr. Patricia Moore worked in a secret laboratory hidden inside an abandoned mine. Before the invasion, she had been a physics professor at a small university. Now, she led a team of scientists working day and night to understand alien technology. They had captured pieces of Valorian equipment from destroyed vehicles and dead soldiers. Shield generators, power cells, communication devices, anything they could get their hands on. and they were learning faster than anyone had thought possible. The physics isn't that different from our own theories, Patricia explained to her team one evening. Einstein predicted most of this. Hawking theorized about the rest. The Valorians are just centuries ahead of us in putting theory into practice. A lead engineer was a quiet man named Henry Lopez. He had worked for a car company before the invasion. Now, he was building weapons that used alien technology. He held up a device that looked like a rifle, made from spare parts and alien components. "This is a plasma rifle," he said. "I built it from pieces of a crashed alien fighter. It's not as powerful as theirs, but it works." Patricia took the weapon carefully. It was heavy and crude, but when Henry fired it at a target across the room, a bolt of blue energy burned a hole through solid steel. "We can do more than copy their weapons," Henry said. "I've been studying their shield generators. I think I know how to build a better one. Something that uses less power and covers a wider area." Patricia smiled for the first time in weeks. "Then let's get to work." Meanwhile, Kevin Brooks had become one of the most wanted humans on the planet. The Valorians had put a massive bounty on his head. They had sent special teams to hunt him. None of them had returned. His group, which they now called the Ghost Battalion, had grown from 12 farmers to over 5,000 fighters. They operated across the middle of the continent, striking at Valorian bases and convoys, then disappearing into the vast empty lands where the aliens could not find them. But Kevin's greatest weapon was not his fighters or his captured alien technology. It was information. He had built a network of spies that reached into every part of the occupation. Kitchen workers in alien command centers, mechanics who serviced alien vehicles, translators who listened to enemy communications. They gathered information and passed it along through hidden channels. One day, Kevin received a message that changed everything. It was a recording of a conversation between Admiral Karath and the Valorian Senate. Kevin's translators worked for days to decode it, but when they finished, Kevin could not believe what he was reading. "The humans are adapting faster than any species we have encountered," Karath had said. "They learn from every defeat. They study our technology and replicate it within weeks. I require reinforcements." The Senate's response was stunning. "No reinforcements are available. The Empire is stretched thin across our territories. You must subdue this species with your current forces." Kevin read the message 3 times to make sure he understood it correctly. The mighty Valorian Empire, which controlled 17 star systems, was stretched thin. They could not send more ships or soldiers to Earth. The humans were not fighting an army with unlimited resources. They were fighting an army that was already at its limit. Kevin gathered his commanders and shared the news. "We've been thinking about this wrong," he said. "We thought we were fighting against an unstoppable force. But they're not unstoppable. They're struggling to hold on to what they already have. If we push hard enough, they'll break." His second-in-command, a former police officer named Lisa Park, looked skeptical. "They still have shields and plasma weapons and ships that can destroy cities. How do we push against that?" Kevin pointed to a map of the world. "We coordinate. Not just us, everyone. Every resistance group on every continent. We hit them everywhere at once. We make them understand that they can't hold this planet without more soldiers than they can spare. It would take months to plan. It would require cooperation between groups that had never worked together. It would be the largest military operation in human history. But Kevin believed they could do it, because humans had always done impossible things when they had no other choice. In Chicago, Admiral Karath received another casualty report. More soldiers dead. More equipment destroyed. More territory contested. He looked out the window at the ruined city and wondered, for the first time, if he had made a mistake. Perhaps he should have destroyed this planet when he had the chance. perhaps it was already too late. 1 year after the invasion, the humans launched their counterattack. It began on a cold November morning in Chicago. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in an abandoned subway tunnel beneath the city, surrounded by 10,000 fighters. They had come from every corner of the continent, gathering in secret over the past month. Some were former soldiers. Some were teachers, farmers, factory workers. All of them were ready to die for their planet. Elena had been a captain in the Marine Corps before the invasion. She had fought in 2 wars and earned medals for bravery. But nothing she had done before compared to what she was about to attempt. "Listen carefully," she said to her troops. "The Valorian Command Center is in the tower downtown. It's protected by shields, guards, and automated weapons. Every expert we've consulted says attacking it is suicide." She paused and looked at the faces around her. They were dirty, tired, and thin from months of fighting. But their eyes burned with determination. "We're going to attack it anyway," Elena continued. "Because today, we stop hiding. Today, we stop running. Today, we take back our city." A cheer rose from the crowd, echoing through the dark tunnel. At the same moment, similar speeches were being given in London, Paris, Tokyo, Mumbai, Beijing, Sydney, and dozens of other cities around the world. The global resistance had spent months coordinating through captured alien communication devices and old-fashioned coded messages. They had mapped every Valorian base, counted every enemy soldier, identified every weakness. Now, they would strike everywhere at once. The signal was a simple word, broadcast on every frequency: freedom. When Elena heard it, she raised her weapon, a plasma rifle built by human engineers, using stolen alien technology, and charged toward the surface. The battle for Chicago lasted 14 hours. The Valorians fought hard. Their shields absorbed thousands of rounds. Their plasma weapons cut down attackers by the hundreds. Their aircraft strafed the streets with fire that turned concrete to glass. But the humans kept coming. They used devices built by Dr. Patricia Moore's team to disrupt enemy shields. They used tactics developed by Kevin Brooks and the Ghost Battalion. They fought through streets they had known since childhood, using every alley and rooftop to their advantage. By noon, the outer defenses had fallen. By sunset, human fighters were inside the command building itself. Admiral Korath was in the building when the attack began. He watched in disbelief as his elite guards were overwhelmed by waves of humans who should have been easy to defeat. These creatures had no heavy armor, no air support, no orbital bombardment capability. They had nothing but courage and fury and an absolute refusal to stop. When the humans broke through the final door, Korath fled. He ran through back corridors to an emergency hangar where a small escape ship was waiting. He launched into the sky just as the Valorian flag was torn down from the building's roof. From orbit, Korath looked down at the planet and saw fires burning in every major city. Reports flooded in from around the world. London had fallen. Tokyo had fallen. Sydney had fallen. Everywhere, the story was the same. The humans had risen. How is this possible? Draven asked, his voice hollow with shock. They were defeated. They were broken. We controlled everything. Korath had no answer. In 300 years of warfare, he had never seen anything like this. A species that had been conquered, occupied, and brutalized for an entire year had somehow found the strength to fight back and win. The cost had been terrible. Over 3,000 humans died taking Chicago alone. Across the world, the death toll was in the hundreds of thousands. But the humans did not seem to care about their losses. They celebrated their victory as if it was the greatest moment in their history. And perhaps it was in Colorado. Dr. Patricia Moore made an announcement that changed everything. "We've done it," she said over the Resistance communication network. We've reverse-engineered their faster-than-light drive. We can build ships that travel between stars." The message spread across the planet in minutes. Humans could now reach other worlds. They were no longer trapped on Earth, waiting to be conquered. They could take the fight to the enemy, but there was more. Patricia's team had also decoded the captured Valorian navigation data. They knew the location of every planet in the Empire, including the Valorian homeworld itself. President Carson, who had survived the war in a series of underground bunkers, called a meeting of every human leader still alive. They gathered in a massive cave in Switzerland that had been converted into humanity's new capital. "We have a choice to make," Carson said. "We can fortify Earth and hope the Valorians don't come back with a larger fleet. Or we can build our own ships and make sure they never threaten us again." General Cole stood up. "If we stay here, we're sitting targets. The Valorians will come back eventually, probably with overwhelming force. Our only chance is to strike first." "Strike first?" someone asked. "Attack an empire that controls 17 star systems? We barely survived their invasion." Kevin Brooks, who had been invited as a representative of the resistance fighters, spoke quietly. "We didn't just survive. We won. And we did it with hunting rifles and homemade bombs against plasma weapons and orbital bombardment. Imagine what we can do with ships of our own." The debate lasted for 3 days. In the end, the vote was nearly unanimous. Humanity would not wait for the next attack. Humanity would build a fleet and take the war to the stars. Across the planet, factories that had been destroyed in the invasion were rebuilt and repurposed. Human engineers worked alongside captured alien technology, combining the best of both into something new. The first human starship was completed 6 months later. It was ugly and crude compared to Valorian vessels, but it was fast, tough, and armed with weapons that made plasma cannons look weak. They named it the Defiant, and it was only the first. Within a year, humanity had a fleet of 40 warships, crewed by volunteers who knew they might never see Earth again. Admiral Korth sent warnings to the Imperial Senate about what was coming. They did not believe him. Humans were primitive creatures who had barely survived the occupation. They could not possibly threaten the Empire. Korth knew better. He had seen what humans could do when they were cornered. He had watched them turn defeat into victory through sheer determination and creativity. But even he did not fully understand what humanity had become. The invasion had changed them. It had burned away everything soft and naive, leaving behind something harder and more dangerous. Humanity had learned a terrible lesson. The galaxy was not safe. The galaxy was full of predators who would destroy them without hesitation. And now humanity was going to teach the galaxy a lesson of its own. The first human fleet left Earth on a summer morning, exactly 2 years after the invasion had begun. As the ships accelerated toward the stars, Elena Vasquez, now Admiral Vasquez, looked back at the blue planet growing smaller in the distance. "We'll be back," she said quietly. "And when we return, no one will ever threaten our home again." The galaxy did not know it yet, but everything was about to change. The Valorian Empire received its first warning when the colony of Velnir III went silent. For 500 years, Velnir III had sent regular reports to the homeworld. Trade updates, population counts, military readiness, the usual business of empire. Then one day, the reports stopped. When a patrol ship was sent to investigate, it found the colony intact but changed. The Valorian military base was destroyed. The weapons factories were rubble. And above the planet hung a fleet of strange ships broadcasting a message in every known language. "We did not ask for this war. We did not want it. But we will finish it." The humans had arrived. Admiral Korth received the news aboard his remaining flagship, now stationed at the defense perimeter around the Valorian homeworld. He was not surprised. He had warned the Senate for months that the humans were coming. They had not listened. They had called him a coward and a failure. Now they were listening. How many ships? The Emperor demanded during an emergency council meeting. 40, Your Majesty, Karth replied. But these are not ordinary ships. They are faster than ours. Their weapons are more powerful. Their shields, he paused, struggling to explain. Their shields are based on our technology, but improved. They have done in 2 years what took our scientists centuries to achieve. The Emperor's face turned pale. How is this possible? They are primitives. Korath shook his head slowly. They were primitives when we attacked them. They are not primitives anymore. The invasion forced them to evolve. Every weapon we used against them, they captured and improved. Every tactic we employed, they studied and countered. We thought we were conquering them. Instead, we were teaching them. The human fleet moved through Valorian space like a storm. Colony after colony fell. But the humans did not do what the Valorians expected. They did not slaughter civilians. They did not take slaves. They did not strip the planets of resources. They simply destroyed military targets, broadcast their message, and moved on. At first, the Valorians thought this was weakness. They were wrong. The humans were sending a message not just to the Empire, but to every other species in the galaxy. They were showing that they could have done terrible things, but chose not to. That message was more frightening than any atrocity would have been. The Battle of Valoria, the final battle of the war, began on a morning that the Valorians would remember with shame for 1,000 years. Admiral Korath commanded the defense fleet personally. 300 warships, the largest force the Empire had ever assembled, stood between the human fleet and the homeworld. Every ship was crewed by veterans. Every weapon was charged and ready. Korath had spent his entire career preparing for battles like this. It was not enough. The human ships came out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. There were only 40 of them against 300, but they moved with a coordination that Korath had never seen. They did not fly like ships. They flew like a single creature with 40 bodies. Admiral Elena Vasquez commanded the human fleet from the bridge of the Defiant. She had fought in the streets of Chicago. She had led the liberation of 3 Valorian colonies. She had lost friends, soldiers, and years of her life to this war. Now she was going to end it. All ships, she said calmly, engage. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it was over, the Valorian fleet was shattered. Broken ships tumbled through space, leaking atmosphere and fire. Korath's flagship was among the wreckage, the admiral dead at his post. But Elena did not feel joy. She felt tired. So very tired, she led the landing party to the Imperial Palace herself. The building was beautiful, built from white stone that gleamed in the sunlight. It had stood for 1,000 years, a symbol of Valorian power and glory. Now, human soldiers walked through its halls. The Emperor was waiting in his throne room, surrounded by his advisors and guards. When Elena entered, he slowly removed his crown and knelt before her. "I offer unconditional surrender," he said. "My life is yours. My empire is yours. Only spare my people." Elena looked at him for a long moment. This creature had ordered the attack on Earth. He had approved the bombardment that killed millions. He had sent soldiers to enslave her species. She could kill him. She could destroy his empire and scatter his people across the stars. She had the power. After everything the Valorians had done, no one would blame her. But that was not why she had come. "Stand up," Elena said quietly. The Emperor looked confused but obeyed. Elena turned to address not just the Emperor, but all the dignitaries in the room, ambassadors from a dozen conquered species, who had come to witness what they assumed would be humanity's revenge. "We were a peaceful species once," she said. "We fought among ourselves, yes, but we dreamed of the stars. We dreamed of meeting other civilizations. We wanted to be part of something greater. You took those dreams and tried to burn them." She paused, and her voice grew stronger. "We could destroy you. We have the power. We could do to your worlds what you did to ours. But that is not who we are. That is not who we choose to be." The Emperor stared at her with confusion and fear. "Then what do you want?" Elena smiled, but there was no joy in it. Only resolution. "We want you to live with what you've done. We want you to remember, for the rest of your history, that you attacked a peaceful world and created the force that brought your empire to its knees. We want that shame to be your punishment." She turned to the ambassadors from the conquered worlds. "And we want to free everyone you've enslaved. Not as subjects of a human empire. We don't want an empire. But as free peoples who can choose their own paths." The news spread across the galaxy within days. The humans had defeated the most powerful empire in known space. And then, instead of taking its place, they had simply walked away. They had freed the slaves, shared their technology, and asked for nothing except peace. In the years that followed, humanity became something new. Not conquerors, but liberators. Not rulers, but allies. They shared the technology they had developed during the war with any species that wanted it. They helped rebuild worlds that had been devastated by Valorian rule. They made friends where they could and defended the weak when they had to. And when young species looked up at the stars and wondered if they should fear what lay beyond, the older civilizations told them a story. The story of the small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. The story of a species that was attacked without warning and nearly destroyed. The story of how they fought back with nothing but courage and creativity and an absolute refusal to give up. The story that horrified the galaxy, not because of what humanity did, but because of what they could have done and chose not to. Because in the end, that was the most terrifying thing of all. A species powerful enough to conquer the galaxy, wise enough to refuse, and brave enough to offer forgiveness instead of fire. On Earth, now rebuilt and thriving. Kevin Brooks sat on the porch of his farmhouse with his wife and daughter. Sophie was grown now, a pilot in the human fleet that patrolled friendly space. Maria's hair had turned gray, but her eyes still sparkled when she laughed. Kevin looked up at the stars and thought about everything that had happened. The invasion, the war, the victory, the peace. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Maria asked. "Letting them go, I mean, after everything they did to us." Kevin thought about it for a long time before answering. "I think we proved something important," he said finally. "We proved that we're better than they were. We had the chance to become monsters, and we chose not to. That matters. That's what makes us human." Sophie pointed at a streak of light crossing the sky, a human ship heading out to the stars. "Besides," Kevin added with a small smile, "now they know. The whole galaxy knows. Don't mess with Earth." The Valorian Empire had attacked Earth expecting an easy conquest. What they got instead was a lesson the universe would never forget. Humanity had arrived among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same.